Hey everyone, this is Alexander here. I wanted to do a quick video because I felt like it'd be an easier way to respond to my friend here who had a couple questions about a certain grifter called Lori Wired, which I'm sure you've seen on your feeds before. So, this was his question. I was just kind of pointing out to her, I sent a screenshot offhand, and I said, it's another grifter, in contrast to Gorge, in this case referring to George Hotz. But she's a level 85 industry plant. And he's got a pretty earnest question. What do you mean by that? I know she works for Google, but the most I could say about the few videos of hers I watched was that they were mildly informative. Now, the basic thing that you got to understand in order to even get into this sort of accusation is to understand what's outside of and in the periphery of somebody like Lori herself. And in order to understand that, you got to take a much more basic premise. Let's start simple. Let's start with the premise that, for the most part, the tech industry is run by criminals. And what I mean by criminals, of course, is people who do not legitimately earn their place in what they do. So I'm talking about criminals in the moral sense. If crime's legal, it doesn't make a difference to me or you. So that's what we're looking at. And I think that's a concept that a lot of people can pretty very well understand. They're a mafia. And there's multiple factions to it. They're not all on the same team necessarily, but they're all following the same book. So they're criminals, right? What's the basic problem with being a criminal? The issue is that you can't do legitimate work in order to make money or to build credibility and build a reputation for yourself. That's the basic hard problem. It's what leads these people originally to turn to crime so that they can have the limelight, make all the money, and get the girl and everything like that, and they can win in the eyes of society without having to do what society expected. When you're a criminal who is full of shit and you have to pay other people in order to do all of your work, it creates a problem that we've all seen played out with Elon Musk, where it's like pretty easy to pierce the veil and tell that he's just some rich guy who's LARPing, live action role playing for people who don't know what that means, and realize he's full of shit and he's not worthy of anybody's admiration or respect because he doesn't actually understand anything that he's doing. He's just telling a bunch of smart people to go obediently do it for him and then taking credit. So, when you have a situation like this and you're a criminal, you have two options. Either one, learn what the fuck you're doing and go legit. Obviously, they're not going to take that first choice because that would be hard. Or B, up your lying game. And this is where social media really begins to shine. This is where we get to people like Lori Wired here. So the accusation is she's a plant. But what does that mean exactly? The best way to understand what an industry plant is, I think, is by doing an A-B comparison so that you can see for yourself what all the little details are and what kind of breadcrumbs these people tend to leave. The biggest breadcrumb far and away that Lori Wired has left is the fact that she has no digital footprint whatsoever before January of 2023. None. Why does a digital footprint matter, you may ask? Isn't it common for people who work in the tech industry to be very sensitive and careful with their anonymity and privacy, right? And the answer is, well, maybe, but on the other hand, they're still human beings, and I know of a lot of cypherpunks and people who have much more of a genuine digital paper trail than this person does. So, kind of not really. Like, the framing of the question is very disingenuous, and it's kind of just designed to buttress cognitive dissonance. That sort of line of thinking here is really not doing you any favors if that's what you're wondering about. It's a big question mark when you have something like this. You can see this much less controversially in other contexts in which the tech mob has kind of, left their fingerprints. The most legible example I can give to you of this is the A-B comparison between Joe Rogan and Lex Fridman. By this point, everybody knows that Lex Fridman was a plant, but he started in exactly the same way that Lori did here, where she just shows up on the scene and things just organically, everything just works out for her. She gets all the Twitter followings. I don't show the followers here because I have my Twitter detox, but she gets all these, views, all the subscribers. Everything just works, right? Everything works. It's like the platform is just running as intended. But I think the rest of us are sober enough to realize that places like YouTube and X.com and even Meta platforms, they don't work this way for everybody. Although that is very much the public perception that these platforms would like for us to have. They would very much like for us to think that we can all be Lori Wired if only we simply did what she did. That's the lie. That's actually giving light here to what's really going on. Because what somebody like Lori Wired is doing is not entirely evident on the video. Let's say that you have every quality that she has. Let's say you go here, you look at these videos, right? Let's say you make thumbnails that are about the same in quality, maybe even similar psychological profiles. Let's say that you have somebody, or you're somebody who looks about as interesting physically, and you cover the same topics, and let's just say for the sake of argument, you did this and she wasn't doing it already. Would it work out for you? Depends. And that's where things begin to get dark. If you just show up and find out yesterday about Lori Wired, and you have no idea, you've never heard about her before, they're going to have what's called a just so kind of cognitive dissonance, is what's going to be planted in your brain, because you don't have any prior thoughts, you don't have any previous memories beforehand, and so you're just going to look at this content creator and think that, well, they just showed up. It's like a kind of presentism in the memory. This is a problem with the psychology involved in watching television. It's one of the reasons why it's so bad for you to consume lots of TV. These are productions. When you look at this stuff, these are productions. This is not the real person. Now, as for the real Lori Wired, the one that we don't see on the TV screen here, there are things that she has done that has led her channel to be successful. That's what I want to get into explaining here as to why she would be classified as a plant. The other thing I kind of want to disabuse before I get into that is the notion that she's a fraud. I don't believe that for a second. I think that she's a very normal, proficient programmer. This is what you need to focus on when you look at this here and you see that she's giving a keynote. This is your clue as to what this is really about, and this is what brings it back to what I said earlier about remember the tech mob and how they're all run by criminals and everything that matters has been monopolized by people who don't know how to do anything. They don't have any original thoughts or ambitions. They don't have the ability to execute and follow through on a project that matters to them, that's meaningful, that they believe in. They just want to have all the money and be the center of attention all the fucking time. They all want to do what Elon Musk aspired to do in the course of buying Twitter and renaming it to X.com. This is the layer 2 of that. When you look at Lori Wired here, this is the layer 2. Okay, I'm not going to be an egotist like Elon all the time. I'm going to let other people have the limelight, and I'm going to go vicariously support those characters as part of my self-narrative that I'm the greatest guy ever. I'm, Naval Ravikant. I'm Mark Andreessen. And I'm just this god. I'm this luminary that just magically selects all the best programmers every single time. I mean, look at it. Read them and weep. This person's obviously amazing because they're really good at television, and I'm addicted to the television, and I don't know what reality is. I just went on a podcast saying having zero introspection is a good idea. Of course I think that this is what it is. Of course they think this way. And it depersonalizes their control over all of this stuff. The fact that they are making this stuff happen. I mean, that's kind of the big thing under everybody's noses, right? They own these places. They have the final say. They have levers and dashboards that you and I don't get to see that decides whether or not these accounts will have an open door in people's recommendations or not. There's a formula for recommendations and whether or not we show up, and it's based on how we do in previous click-through. And there's a legitimate algorithm that us mortals have to work for. But when you have channels like this, YouTube gives them carte blanche. It's one of the ways that they facilitate this racket. And so if you can astroturf somebody like Lori Wired, and then the best case is that she's blissfully unaware of the fact that she's been astroturfed. And I do believe that's probably the case here. If you can astroturf somebody like this, and they're just good enough to talk shop, basically, but they don't have any serious contributions, they don't have some career behind them where they did this or they did that and it was normal. Again, compare and contrast it to Lex Fridman and Joe Rogan. Lex just shows up out of fucking nowhere. They just airdrop him like it's a fucking battle royale. Whereas Joe Rogan had been on comedy circuits for decades. He'd run a reality TV show long before the internet was mainstream. He has a resume. This person does not. And yet they're going to show up here and we're all going to be socially induced into treating them as if they earned all of this stuff because they have all the social proof. And that's the biggest scam that the tech mob pulls on anybody, is that they manufacture social proof, basically. There's two reasons why this is really bad for us. One, or why, you shouldn't like this, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. The first problem is that this is a lie. It's a lie that you could do any of this. It's a lie that you could be a part of this or that you are a part of this. It's a lie that this is how things are. And this is the problem, is that, well, when it's an endless content merry-go-round, you're never going to run out of bullshit to yap about for, 15 to 30 minutes. Yeah, look at this. This person's been selected. By the way, speaking of getting selected, this was a pretty interesting meme that I found on the Thomas the Plank Engine subreddit. So this is the kind of stuff that people make. Either they see it in dreams or sometimes they see it while tripping. Ever since I found this, I've just been kind of using getting nabbed as a slang term to refer to what's happening here. It's a real thing. Lori got nabbed. As humorous as it may be to notice getting nabbed and that whole phenomenon, it's really important that we all come to understand here. This is not reality, and this is not something that any of us will ever have the privilege of participating in. This is a television show. It's a staged act. In a normal world, that would be okay. But I think we all understand by now that social media is a lot more toxic and imposing on people's lives, that TV isn't just TV at this point. TV is an escape from reality. TV is a parasocial relationship. TV is somebody you can send money to every month on Patreon or OnlyFans. And that's kind of the problem here with this, is that there's no getting away from it. If you yourself doesn't give this kind of person money, somebody that you know probably is. This is not organic. It's not earned. Somebody like me has zero chance of ever doing this, even though I'm just as smart as she is as far as all this shit's concerned, if not more so. I mean, I make videos too, right? What am I to talk? That's why I'm saying I don't knock her technical capabilities. She's normal. But the thing you have to understand is that she's not so exceptional to warrant this kind of attention, especially so recent. It just doesn't make sense. Now, yeah, that's the first problem. It's bad for you because it's not real. The second problem, and the reason I'm compelled to talk about this, is because this person is crowding out legitimate people in the industry, okay? And the best example I can give to you is right there in her fucking pin tweet. She's going to go to CPPCon. Oh boy, I wonder what she's going to have to say. I bet it's going to be, let me check my notes here, mildly informative. Huh. Weird. Why would we send somebody to CPPCon who's only going to be mildly informative? That doesn't... Oh, yeah, that makes a lot more sense now. I see. I see what it is. So, let me get this straight. If I can get 500,000 YouTube subscribers and I can pull in anywhere from 100,000 to 1 million views per video, by whatever means necessary, it's nobody's concern. It's all obviously legit and nobody has any reason to question any of this shit. But if I can do that, then I can do whatever the fuck I want? What do you mean I just have a standing invitation to all of the biggest technical conferences that our industry has to offer? Are you telling me that if I can just be a fake astroturfed e-celebrity, I can go to CPPCon and talk about object residency? Wow, what a fucking deal. I think I'll take it. And that's where you find out the real pain in what I said earlier. You and I have no chance because there's algorithms and they don't work the same for you as they do for people like this. These people have a key turned on their profiles so that they can operate it differently. Now, granted, they still have to make videos that fit within the mold, but they're given a much wider breadth to do that. They're also given much lower thresholds to hit in terms of content engagement. It's the table's not entirely fucking earthquaked apart, but it is absolutely tilted in a really big way for them. That's how this stuff works. It's why to this day they give no oxygen to any kinds of public discourses about open sourcing algorithms. It's entirely contrived. It's not even on the fucking roadmap. They do not want you to see how they really decide who matters, because if you did, their heads might be on pikes. That's just the facts. So it's not real, first of all, and it's turning our industry into a clown show. Who the fuck needs this? Do we need this? Is this helping? Is this moving the needle? This is my job. This is what I do. I give a shit about programming. I love this stuff. I love computers. So I have to be the one to cut the shit and ask, seriously, adult to adult, is this all just a fucking game? Is this just a fucking show? What is this? Justify this. This is the problem with media. They don't have to justify everything because their metrics of success are in subscriber counts and view counts and Nielsen ratings and shit like that. Their success is not predicated on whether or not they're speaking gobbledygook or whether or not they're signaling a sea change in a scientific field. They don't care about that, because doing that is way more legitimate, way more higher effort, way more lower reward, higher risk for them as well. They can't fake that anywhere near as easily. And it's so hard, in fact, that they would even have a hard time finding people who could convincingly do that and then trying to prevent them from, being independent and going about their own devices, which is why people like Lori Wired are their favorite thing. She's just smart enough to talk shop and go to these little conferences. She's invited because, of course, she is. They have other people in their Rolodexes that'll make sure that she gets a ticket or that she gets to be a speaker. They'll pay for everything because they're billionaires. And they're running a 20th century influence racket, basically. So you need to be friends. You need to go suck Peter Thiel's cock. Otherwise, you're nobody. And it doesn't matter how legitimate you are. It doesn't matter how impactful your contributions. Nobody's even fucking asking, okay? No one cares. Are you the next Alan Turing? How about the next Gregor Mandel? How about fuck you? How about you be the next Rudolf Diesel? And if you don't know the life story of Gregor Mandel or Rudolf Diesel, I strongly suggest that you go on Wikipedia and fucking read about it, because it's disgusting and it doesn't end well. And they didn't deserve any of it. This is the danger for scientists and engineers and people like me. And implicitly, the danger for everybody is that I don't get to go and contribute to society because my shit's been rigged by a mob. I can't give you guys better computing if I wanted to, because they're shitting everything up here with their fake little influence rackets because they want to feel more important and more powerful than they really are. So you guys don't even get what I'm trying to literally just fucking give it to you. I can't. Can't get a job, can't get funding, everything's fake, everything's just a fucking racket. But yeah, read about Rudolf Diesel. Read about him. It's brutal. He did an amazing thing for humanity. And he was probably murdered on a boat on his way to sell it to the British just 'cause. Stupid shit, man. Stupid shit. But that's what they want to see for people so that they can hold it up here, live it up. One other thing I will say as well, and the reason I'm so confident in this kind of theory to explain this phenomenon here, is because for a time when I was in the industry, I was also sort of courted for this sort of thing, if you might say that. In 22, I went down to Austin City, and I wrote The Scourge of Austin City as a kind of a journal and a critical report on my experiences there. It's on my Stack. You should go read it, nickstack.com. I've since done 2 follow-up articles to that. I've written The Scourge of the Tech Industry, and my latest thing here that I've written, my latest thing here is Don't Go Public, Go Confidential. And it's where I talk about companies that are so private that they don't even really engage in business anymore. They're all just kind of fronts for money laundering, mostly. And I relate that to my firsthand experiences that I've had in the Valley and things like that. Because there was a time, and since then, you can very well imagine, I've become persona non grata in there. They don't talk to me, they don't follow me. MyX.com is search banned. I'm very much unpersoned in the tech industry. And for a good reason. They are criminals, and I am pretty much just making a beeline for trying to expose them with whatever I know. It's really bad for them. Before I became persona non grata in the tech industry, I had to learn what my potential avenues for success were going to be. And this was around the time that I was beginning to parse, for my own sake, what the deal is with Peter Thiel. This has been talked about before. It's not really a secret. Peter Thiel has a very particular taste in men, and that taste in men is pretty much unilaterally reflected in his investments. There's a lot of guys in the tech industry that look roughly like Scam Altman, and the reason is because that's the type of guy that Peter Thiel likes to have sex with. Now, it's not just looks. There's one other thing that's really important, arguably even more important than looks, that Peter Thiel absolutely requires. And it's a pretense of psychological dominance. If you give this to him, he will give you money. He'll take care of you. But you have to give it to him. And what is it? You give Peter Thiel the premise that at any moment he can ruin your life, snub you out like a flame on a torch. Not necessarily that he wants to do that. He just wants to be able to have every reason to believe that he could. He wants to have control over you. That's his fetish. And we see this reflected in most of the people that he's given money to. And the pattern has also become a little bit of a contagion as well, to the point where you get somebody like Lori Wired, who, even though she's very much a woman, and I don't really have much reason at this juncture to doubt that, she looks like the type of gay guy that Peter Thiel would want to fuck if the gay guy was a woman. It just keeps on giving, man. Now, all for a hot minute, when I was in the tech industry, I looked like somebody who might be dumb enough that I might sell my soul to this, because I was just incredibly earnest, just embarrassingly an open book. But as soon as I started learning literally anything at all, and I didn't shut my mouth, it was over. But before that point is that everybody implicitly understood there was a potential, like, hey, you're gay, you could do the thing, right? It's a quid pro quo. They're very coy about it. They don't like to talk about it much. When I was in Austin, they joked about it with me one time. But I know now in hindsight that they weren't really joking. That was the end. I didn't take it, as you can tell. But that's how this stuff works. And going through that kind of experience firsthand, having this kind of like intimate touch and feel with an interface that is involving my sexuality and my personhood and my past and future and things like that, it gives you a lot more psychological kind of tactile feedback, if you will, to really understand what it is that you're looking at, what it is that you're dealing with, feel the beast, if you will. And that's how this shit's actually working, guys. So that's a pretty dark concept. Now, just to bring it full circle here, we got to understand the gravity and the indignity of what we're looking at. What I was staring down the barrel of years ago is a life that this person is currently living. You have to be grounded enough to understand that in some ways, this is a tragedy. This is sad. And it's not sad because blah, 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 illegitimacy. It's not sad because, oh, you're just jealous or whatever. I'm not. I have much more important things to care about and worry about in my life. I have worries, and this is not one of them. This is sad because this person has sacrificed their own dignity just to have a career, just to be special, just to be wanted, just to be seen. These are all core psychological human needs that every person has. And this person has sold their bodies, sold their souls, however you want to look at that. And that's the ultimate indictment. That's what it takes to win in tech. You need to be completely psychologically and personally compromised. And also, you need to debase and degrade and, in a way, humiliate yourself, donning a maid outfit, if you will, dispensing yourself in your whole life and all your hopes and dreams and everything that you've ever hoped for is going to be at the mercy of some asshole, some ugly, dysgenic, broke dick piece of human garbage, and he gets to decide your fate by cutting a check or not. That is the ultimate criminality at hand with stuff like this. This is no way to live. This is not an example to live by. This is not an aspiration. This is a fucking tragedy. Now, I don't like to talk out of turn unless I really feel confident that I know what I'm talking about, so I'm telling you, this is how it is. You watch Lori Wired, you watch Lex Friedman. You may not know that you watch Lex Friedman, but you essentially do. It's not good for you. The better way I like to put it is, it's all bullshit and it's bad for you. And don't forget that last part. People always forget the second part, and then they don't realize it's actually bad for them, and then they consume it anyways, and then the tech mob wins. Anyways, I hope that gives you kind of a basic rundown, crash course. What's the deal with organized crime in the tech industry? Here's the deal. I hope you learned something as well. In any case, thanks for watching. And as always, thanks for watching.